They didn't see her coming because Kaia Brooks didn't come in loud. She came in real. She didn't post first-day selfies, didn't ask where to sit, didn't smile just to be liked. She showed up at Hamilton High in a black hoodie, worn sneakers, and a silence so steady it scared people. And in a place like Hamilton, silence from a black girl wasn't just misunderstood, it was threatening. They called her names, made up stories, edited her face into lies, and sent them flying through phones like bullets. They laughed until the police showed up, until the library emptied, until they made the wrong move and accused the wrong girl of the wrong thing. And that's when everything changed, because Kaia wasn't just a girl in a hoodie. She was a storm wrapped in stillness, and she didn't fight back the way they expected. She didn't throw a punch. She didn't scream. She didn't burn the place down. She did something far more dangerous. She told the truth, and the truth didn't whisper. It roared. This is the story of what happens when a black girl refuses to shrink, when she wears her silence like armor and walks straight through the fire without flinching. It's a story about schools that protect the popular before the powerless, about lies dressed up as discipline, about how some hoods hide pain and some hoods reveal power. It's about a girl who chose dignity over revenge, who turned humiliation into transformation, and who taught everyone watching that being feared isn't the same as being respected. This is for the quiet ones, the overlooked, the misunderstood, the hoodie wearers. This is for the girls who never get the mic, but walk like they don't need one. Because in this story, the loudest voice doesn't shout, it walks. And when she walks, she changes everything. It was 7:48 a.m. when the Hamilton High yellow bus hissed to a stop. Students poured out in a frenzy of noise, shouting, laughing, slamming headphones onto ears. Amid the chaos, one figure moved differently. Kaia Brooks, black girl, hoodie up, eyes down. She stepped off the bus like smoke. No sound, no trace. She didn't make a scene. She made an absence. That was her way, had always been. Hamilton High was known for two things: old money and new problems. It was nestled in a wealthy suburb outside Atlanta, a place where Teslas lined the pickup lane and legacy plaques hung on the gym wall. Here, status didn't walk the hallways. It floated. Kaia didn't belong, and she knew it. She hugged the straps of her beat-up olive green backpack tighter, the same way she'd learned to brace for wind in Chicago's winters. Even though Georgia's autumn air was gentler, there was still something cold in the hallways of Hamilton. Not the kind that nipped your skin, but the kind that crept through silence. The school building loomed with red brick, steel-framed windows, and banners boasting Ivy League admissions. The first thing Kaia noticed wasn't the architecture. It was how nobody looked like her. Not just skin color, though that was part of it. It was the way they moved, the way they spoke like they owned the ground beneath their feet. Kaia moved like she rented space. She'd promised herself this would be a quiet year. Last school before graduation, no fights, no notes from the principal, no teacher calling her mother with that voice. She's very smart, but just peace. Maybe finally a year without being the girl from the South Side, the one whose dad is in jail, which wasn't true, or the one who looks angry even when she's not. She just wanted to blend. But blending isn't easy when your skin speaks louder than your mouth. Her sneakers squeaked softly as she walked the polished hallway, avoiding eye contact, searching for locker 239. Students passed her in packs, their words laced with casual cruelty, not even directed at her yet, but sharp enough that she knew her turn would come. Then she felt it, that moment when the air shifts, voices lowered, space opened. She didn't have to turn to know someone important had entered behind her. The kind of important that comes with lip gloss, polished boots, and the certainty that nothing and no one can say no to you. Kaia slid her lock to the second number and exhaled slow. Is that the new girl? The voice was clear, sharp, and sugar-coated in judgment. Kaia didn't flinch, but she didn't turn either, just kept spinning the lock. Behind her stood Sienna Hart. She was everything Hamilton worshipped. Blonde, tall, dressed like her parents owned a vineyard in Napa. Her cropped plaid jacket probably cost more than Kaia's entire wardrobe. And her eyes, icy blue and unnervingly steady, scanned Kaia like she was inventory. Or worse, intrusion. Flanking her were her shadows, Tori with hair the color of fire and a laugh that cut like glass, and Madison, quiet, sharp-eyed, always with a phone ready. They weren't just friends, they were a system. And Sienna? She was the algorithm. No one voted her queen, she just crowned herself. And Hamilton obeyed. Kaia didn't need to look to know Sienna was watching her. She could feel it, the way heat radiates from behind. That moment of calculation, of social lines being drawn in real time. Kaia finally opened her locker. No drama, no response. But silence in this school wasn't neutrality, it was rebellion. Kaia knew that silence was sometimes more dangerous than shouting, especially here. As the lock clicked open and she grabbed her schedule, the tension behind her thickened. Not loud, not direct, just heavy. The kind of weight you feel in a room when people smile at your face but talk to your shadow. Cute hoodie, Sienna said, loud enough for nearby students to hear. Didn't know Goodwill was still open. A few kids chuckled, nervous and unsure if they were supposed to laugh. Kaia didn't react. Her hand reached for her notebook. She moved slowly, deliberately, like she hadn't even heard it. Silence again, but now it was charged. Kaia's hoodie was her favorite. Charcoal black, faded at the cuffs. It smelled faintly of detergent and home. She wore it like armor, a gift from her older brother who taught her to box in their uncle's garage before he got deployed. The hoodie wasn't just fabric, it was memory. She slid the locker door shut. "Hey," the voice came again. Sienna, closer this time. Too close. Kaia finally turned her head. Not all the way, just enough to see Sienna's eyes. Blue like glass, sharp, waiting. "Where you from again?" she asked with that saccharine smile. "Some school in the city, right?" "You transferred out?" "Yeah," Kaia said flatly. "Lincoln." "Oh," Sienna nodded slowly, like she'd just confirmed a theory. "That's the one with metal detectors, right?" Tori let out a low chuckle. Madison didn't speak, just lifted her phone and subtly recorded Kaia's expression. She'd been filming since the first snide remark. That was Madison's talent, archiving humiliation. Kaia looked back down, adjusting the zipper of her backpack. No response. Not yet. She could feel her heart thumping, but her face stayed smooth. Calm. Control the moment. Don't let them win the opening scene. A boy nearby, a short freshman with braces and a skateboard, watched quietly, then quickly looked away. No one was going to step in. Not here. "Anyway," Sienna said, her tone now dipped in a kind of fake empathy. "If you need help getting used to this school, let me know. I know it's probably a lot nicer than what you're used to." She smiled. Kaia didn't, just stared at her. Long enough that the moment turned uncomfortable. Long enough that the smile cracked. Just a bit. Then Kaia spoke, quiet but clear. "I'll be fine." And that was it. She walked away. Calm, shoulders square, steps even. But she felt every eye on her, every whisper that followed. The way laughter flared in her wake. How they stared at the hoodie like it told a story they wanted to rewrite. In homeroom, Kaia picked the back corner. She didn't take off her hoodie, didn't try to meet anyone's eyes. Just opened her notebook and began sketching. Lines, curves, a pair of boxing gloves with fire coming out the sides. Her escape. Ms. Levin, the teacher, glanced at her once with a warm smile, then turned back to the attendants. Kaia appreciated that. The smile, the non-intrusion. But even here, far from Sienna, the hallway energy clung to her. Kids glanced, whispered, a few stared, some confused, some amused. She was the new black girl in the hoodie, already a concept before she ever opened her mouth. Kaia took a slow breath and dropped her pencil for a second. She wasn't angry, not yet, but she was alert. This was how it always began. One look, one laugh, one queen bee looking for a new chew toy. The rules were unwritten, but she knew them well, and something told her. This wasn't going to be the quiet year she'd hoped for. The cafeteria at Hamilton High was more than just a place to eat. It was a stage. Tables weren't arranged by grades or classes. They were divided by social code. Athletes near the windows, influencers dead center, theater kids tucked into a corner by the vending machines. And at the far end, under the skylight where the sun hit just right, sat Sienna Hart. Kaia walked in alone. She held a plain brown lunch bag, same one she'd been using for years. Apple, PB&J. A water bottle wrapped in foil to keep it cold. She scanned the room, searching not for an open table, but for the one least likely to make her a target. She spotted a small two-seater near the trash bins. Not ideal, but it was distance. And she needed distance. As she made her way across the cafeteria, heads turned, whispers stirred. A few students watched her, not directly but sideways, like she was a glitch in the system. The hoodie didn't help. It drew eyes like a flag, a symbol of something they couldn't name, but somehow already judged. Kaia sat down, unwrapped her sandwich, and stared straight ahead. 3 bites in, the noise changed. Footsteps, intentional, loud, rhythmic. Sienna. She didn't just walk, she arrived. Behind her, as always, came Tori and Madison. Tori's laugh bounced off the tiled walls. Madison held her phone at her hip, casually recording, as usual. Kaia didn't look up. She didn't need to. She felt it. The presence, the performance building. Then the moment landed. "Hey, hoodie girl," Sienna called out across the lunchroom. The room quieted by a few decibels. Kaia froze, sandwich halfway to her mouth. She didn't respond. Sienna walked closer, tray in hand. "Didn't see you at orientation. Were you too busy tagging walls or dodging cops back in Lincoln?" Gasps. A few stifled laughs. The kind of laugh that hides behind sips of soda or bites of fries. Kaia put her sandwich down. She finally looked up. Sienna was standing right in front of her now, eyes gleaming with that sick, sweet fire only the cruelest people know how to spark. Or wait. Sienna leaned in. "Is the hoodie your disguise? What are you hiding under there?" Kaia's eyes narrowed, but her body didn't move. Sienna looked around dramatically. "Can someone turn up the AC? It's getting a little hood in here." Now the laughter came louder, not from everyone, but enough. Phones lifted. Kaia scanned the crowd. Faces, phones, no allies. Her eyes met Madison's camera, recording. She could feel the rage crawl up her spine, the weight of every time she'd let something like this go. Every lunchroom, every hallway, every snicker she swallowed down because she couldn't afford to be that black girl who snapped. She stood up slowly, deliberately. The room held its breath. Sienna smiled like she'd won, like she'd baited her just enough. Kaia stepped forward, not close, not confrontational, just steady. She leaned down toward her lunch bag, zipped it, and slid it into her backpack. Then she turned to Sienna. Not with anger, with stillness, eyes locked, unshaken. "Done?" Kaia asked, her voice low. Sienna blinked, then smirked. Kaia nodded once. "Cool." She turned and walked out. That was it. But the cafeteria wasn't laughing anymore. The phones kept recording, just in case something else happened. But nothing did. Kaia disappeared through the exit, a hoodie moving through sunlight. No screams, no clapbacks, just presence. And for the first time since she stepped onto Hamilton's campus, she wasn't invisible. Monday morning came with fog, a slow mist curling around the edges of Hamilton High like a warning. Kaia Brooks stepped off the bus. Same hoodie, same silence, but she felt it the moment her foot hit the pavement. Something had shifted. She walked through the school entrance like always, head low, eyes tracking the floor tiles. But today the air felt heavier, eyes lingered a beat longer. Laughter popped like firecrackers behind her. It wasn't loud, but it didn't need to be. Kaia had walked into hostile territory before. This wasn't new. But here, Hamilton High felt like it had studied her, diagnosed her silence, and now decided it was a disease worth treating, with mockery. She passed a group of juniors near the vending machines. One of them, some kid with a mop of blonde curls, nudged his friend and whispered something. The friend smirked and angled his phone screen so Kaia could see. A video was paused on it. She caught a single blurry frame of her own face. Mid-turn, mid-bite, hoodie up. She didn't stop, but her stomach twisted. They recorded me. She kept walking. Locker 239 clicked open. Inside, her book sat undisturbed, but something wasn't right. A folded piece of paper lay on top of her folder. White, thin, no name. She opened it slowly. Scrawled in black Sharpie, wrong school, wrong skin. Go back. No signature, just hate. She stood there for a few seconds, letting the words soak in, not into her, but into memory. Then she crumpled it, stuffed it into the side pocket of her backpack, and pulled out her notebook. Nothing on her face changed, but inside her ribs felt like they were tightening around her lungs. Kaia walked to second period chemistry with her jaw clenched tight. Every step calculated, controlled. She'd learned how to do that in Chicago, at Lincoln Prep, where being the quiet black girl meant you had two choices: be invisible or become a story whispered in the teacher's lounge after a suspension. She'd chosen invisibility, but invisibility only works if people let you stay unseen. Hamilton High had decided not to. In chemistry, the strike became official. She entered the lab and moved toward her assigned seat, third row, far right by the windows, and froze. Someone had written on her chair, "Hoodie Thug," big block letters in blue marker, taking up the entire seat back. The word thug was underlined 3 times. Kaia didn't blink, just stared. To her left, a cough, then a giggle. Tori's voice rang out like a bell dipped in syrup. "Oh my God, who would even do that?" she said, turning to Madison with wide, innocent eyes. "That's so mean." Madison was already recording, phone at her hip, pretending to text. Kaia's hands itched to snatch the phone and smash it, but instead she pulled a Clorox wipe from the tub on the teacher's desk, returned to her seat, and wiped the insult clean. She sat, opened her book, didn't look at anyone. Mr. Glenn walked in late, nose buried in a tablet, never even noticing the freshly erased ink or the 2 girls smirking in sync. Kaia's ears burned, but her face was stone. Lunch was worse. The second she entered the cafeteria, the buzz shifted. Tables turned their heads like they were watching a trigger they'd all been warned about. Phones were out, not filming her. This time they didn't need to, because the film was already out. Kaia didn't need to see it to know, but she did anyway. A sophomore boy on the edge of the line showed it to a girl next to him. The caption flashed in big white font across the top of his screen. "Hood girl goes cold." The audio played, a clip from Friday. Sienna's voice crystal clear, looped and slowed for effect. "Is it just me, or is it getting hood in here?" Followed by a cheesy sound effect. Fake gunshots. Then the camera had cut to Kaia standing, silent, unreadable. But someone had dubbed it with meme music, clown music. Her face, her silence, had become a joke, a punchline. She found her usual table in the far back, sat down, unwrapped her sandwich, took a bite. Her hands were shaking. She didn't look around. She didn't cry. But her breath came shallow. Her body was calm, but her mind was pacing. Her father's words echoed, "Don't swing first, but never let 'em think you ain't capable." Kaia chewed, swallowed, counted to 5. This wasn't just bullying. This was war. And this was only the first move. By Wednesday, the whispers had become patterns. Kaia noticed it in the way students fell silent just a second too late when she passed by. The way phones turned just slightly, capturing not her face, but her movements, like she was some rare, dangerous animal on exhibit, like they were waiting for her to lash out. But she wouldn't. She couldn't. She'd learned back home in Bronzeville that silence wasn't surrender. It was survival. Her father drilled it into her. The louder they get, the quieter you stay. That's when they get nervous. And nervous was exactly what Sienna Hart was starting to feel. Because Kaia wouldn't break. Not after the chair graffiti. Not after the racist video circulating across group chats. Not even after the anonymous note shoved through her locker vent that morning, reading, "Watch your back, hood girl. We don't like outsiders who think they're better." Kaia crumpled it like the first and dropped it into the trash. She said nothing, but her silence echoed. It wasn't weakness, it was defiance. And for someone like Sienna, used to crying victims or shouting matches, it was infuriating. That afternoon, a fake Instagram account popped up, at Hoodie Queen Hamilton. Kaia's face was the profile photo, blurry, cropped from the video. The first post was a photoshopped pic of her in a prison jumpsuit, standing behind bars with a speech bubble saying, "I'm not ghetto, I'm just misunderstood." The second was worse. It was her real student ID photo, zoomed in and filtered to exaggerate her skin tone, lips darker, eyes glowing red, and captioned, "New Queen of the Jungle." The account gained 74 followers in under an hour. Kaia found out in English Lit, right after finishing a paragraph in her journal about silence as resistance. The irony wasn't lost on her. She didn't report it. She didn't cry. But that night, after dinner, she took off her hoodie for the first time that week and stared at it. The threads were starting to fray along the cuffs. One of the drawstrings had vanished. Her brother's name was still sharpied inside the collar, KB-2021. She closed her eyes, leaned back on her pillow, and let her breathing slow. She remembered the nights back in Chicago when gunshots outside the window competed with the sound of her jump rope slapping basement concrete. When her dad, fresh out from work at the plant, would hold the punching bag and say nothing, just nod when she landed a clean shot. You don't flinch, you don't fold. Hamilton thought they were wearing her down. They were sharpening her. Thursday morning, Kaia opened her locker and froze. Inside, taped to the mirror, was a photo of her mom. It was an old picture. Kaia recognized it instantly. From her Facebook. She'd used it on her phone lock screen for a year. Her mom was smiling in front of their old apartment building in Bronzeville, holding a tray of aluminum-wrapped leftovers. But someone had scribbled across the photo in red ink, "At least now we know where she gets the trash from." Kaia's chest went tight. Her breath stalled. She reached up, removed the photo, and held it between her fingers. That was the moment. The first moment she almost let it all go. Her hands trembled, not with fear, with rage, not for herself, but for her mother, because they had crossed the line, and they thought she'd do nothing. She walked straight to the girls' bathroom, locked the stall door, sat on the closed toilet, and stared at the photo. Then she folded it, neatly, slowly, and slid it into her hoodie pocket. Not the trash, not this time. She wasn't done with it yet. The bell rang for third period. Kaia walked into geometry, head high, hoodie up. Sienna was already there, leaning back in her chair, spinning a gold pen between her fingers like a queen playing with a dagger. Her eyes met Kaia's, and for the first time something flickered behind them. Not cruelty, not pride, but confusion. Sienna had launched every strike she could think of, and the girl in the hoodie was still standing. Still quiet, still unbent. And that was starting to scare her. By Friday, the school buzzed like it was on edge. Something was coming. The prank was too elaborate, too timed to be coincidence. Every move had been planted days in advance. Quiet whispers in the lunchroom, careful camera work by Madison, and now, the moment of execution. Kaia didn't know the details, but she could feel it in the way the energy changed around her. The fake smiles, the sudden kindness from girls who hadn't said a word to her since the first day. Even the teachers seemed distracted, like someone had told them to keep an eye on the new girl. By lunch, the trap was ready. Kaia entered the cafeteria like she always did, hoodie up, lunch in hand, steps even. But when she reached her usual table in the back, her safe zone, it was already occupied. 3 students were sitting there, none of whom had ever looked at her twice before. They were laughing, nudging each other, and pretending not to see her. She stood there silently for a moment, but none of them moved, so she turned. And that's when she saw it. A space had been cleared in the middle of the room, right beneath the skylight, a single seat, empty. It looked prepared, the center of the arena. Kaia didn't move, but the whispers started again. Sienna said she's giving her a chance. She's gonna speak today. No way. Hoodie girl don't talk. That's when Madison stood up, phone already rolling, and raised her voice. Hey, Kaia, she called. We saved you a spot. Come sit with us. The room went still. It wasn't an invitation. It was bait. Kaia looked around. Everyone was watching now. Teachers too distracted by paperwork to intervene. A dozen phones in stealth mode, some out in the open. Kaia turned back toward the center chair. She didn't move toward it, not yet. Instead, she walked slowly along the cafeteria edge, toward the vending machines, every step calculated. Then Sienna rose from her table. She was glowing with the anticipation of a queen about to deliver her final blow. Her voice rang out, sweet and mocking. You've been walking around here like some silent prophet, hoodie girl, she said. But this isn't Chicago. This is Hamilton. We speak here. A few kids snorted, one clapped. Sienna stepped forward. So tell us, what's the story? What's under the hoodie? Why so quiet? Kaia stopped, right in front of her, just a few feet apart now. Black and white, silence and noise. Kaia looked at Sienna. Really looked. Her voice when it came was low. You really want to know what's under the hoodie? Sienna smirked. Finally. Yeah, I do. Kaia dropped her lunch on the ground. Deliberate. She reached up and slowly pulled the hoodie back. Gasps erupted. Not because of her hair, thick coils pulled tight in a braided crown. Not because of her sharp jawline or her steady brown eyes, but because of what was revealed around her neck. A necklace. A simple gold chain with a small boxing glove charm. The kind they gave out at underground fight clubs in South Chicago. Some students recognized it, some didn't. Sienna did, because in that moment, just a split second, Kaia's stance shifted. Her shoulders squared, her chin lifted just enough, and the air in the room changed. Kaia didn't need to raise her voice. She didn't need to make threats, because the truth wasn't loud, it was presence. Still, unbreakable, unbothered. Sienna opened her mouth to speak again, but nothing came out. Kaia stared at her for one long, final moment. Then she bent down, picked up her lunch, and walked to the exit. Not fast, not shaken, just calm. And as she left, a few students, only a few, watched her with something new in their eyes. Not pity, not mockery, respect. Because silence in the face of humiliation wasn't weakness. It was proof. Proof that she couldn't be broken. Not like this, not by them. The video hit before first period even ended. It wasn't on Instagram, not TikTok. This one was different. Someone, Madison most likely, had gone old school. They'd airdropped it. Director, Anonymous, no filters, no watermarks, no way to trace it back. But every student in Hamilton High had it before second bell. Kaia Brooks sat in algebra, hoodie on, solving equations in her head before they hit paper when she felt the shift. Not just whispers this time. Laughter. It started small. 3 desks over. Then it spread like wildfire. Hushed at first, then louder. Phones were slipping under desks, faces tilted down, shoulders shaking. She knew. Before she even saw it, she knew. Mr. Bailey, the teacher, was scribbling something on the board, oblivious. Kaia stared at her desk, willing herself not to look. But then her phone buzzed. Airdrop request. From unknown. Who's the real hoodie girl? Her fingers stayed still. She didn't tap. But the girl next to her, light brown hair, blue nails, a Starbucks cup half hidden in her tote, did. The sound came on instantly, even though she tried to mute it. And Kaia heard it. Her voice, her face. Only it wasn't really her. It was doctored. A deepfake. Kaia's face looped into a video of someone dancing provocatively in a locker room. She was twerking, laughing, slapping another girl's rear. Except, it wasn't Kaia. The real body was someone else entirely. But the face, clear as day. Her face edited in flawlessly. The caption read, Hoodie girl in her natural habitat. Hashtag Bronzeville bounce. Hashtag Hamilton upgrade. Hashtag from the streets. Kaia's stomach dropped. This wasn't just bullying. This was sabotage. She closed her eyes for half a second, hearing the laughter ripple, grow, move like a tide behind her. The teacher finally turned, frowning at the noise. All right, let's focus, people. Phones away. But it was too late. It had already spread. The seed was planted. And in schools like Hamilton, rumors didn't need roots. They bloomed instantly. Kaia didn't say a word the entire class. She walked out when the bell rang, calm on the outside, a storm roiling beneath. She didn't rush to the bathroom to cry. She didn't throw her phone across the hallway. She just walked. Locker. Book. Next class. But something inside her had cracked. Because this wasn't a joke in the hallway anymore. This was the kind of humiliation that followed you home, haunted your name, stayed on the internet long after you graduated. As she moved through the crowd between classes, more heads turned, more smirks, more fingers pointing. A few kids had Bluetooth speakers playing the audio, looping it. One even held it up as she passed. Kaia looked at him for exactly 1 second, and that was enough. He flinched, lowered it, because something in her eyes, quiet, sharp, bottomless, cut through the mockery like a knife. But the damage was done. The war wasn't silent anymore. It was broadcast. Later in the cafeteria, Kaia sat alone. She hadn't eaten, just sat, hood up, arms crossed, staring at the center skylight table where it had all begun. Sienna was there, of course, hair perfect, lip gloss gleaming, laughing like she hadn't just obliterated someone's life. And Madison, holding her phone like a trophy. They didn't look at Kaia. They didn't have to, because the message had already been sent. The school wasn't laughing with Kaia. It was laughing at her. And for the first time since she arrived, Kaia felt the weight of it all. The silence, the exile, the unbearable, suffocating shame. She tightened the hoodie around her face. She wasn't going to cry. Not here, not now, but deep inside. She wasn't just a girl in a hoodie anymore. She was a girl on the edge. Kaia didn't come to school on Monday. No hoodie, no silent walk through the hall, no shadow slipping between lockers. Just absence. And at Hamilton High, absence wasn't neutral. It was noticed. Did she transfer? Someone whispered in third period biology. Nah, said a football player near the back. She's probably crying in Bronzeville. Or in juvie, Madison added, grinning. You saw that video, right? She probably got expelled for real. Sienna didn't say much, not in public. She just watched the hallways, calm, composed, perfectly curated as always. But behind her designer sunglasses and glossed lips, something was unsettled. Because Kaia hadn't responded. Not a post, not a fight, not a breakdown, just gone. And that was worse, because silence, when it's real, when it's not strategy, not passivity, silence starts to scare people, especially people like Sienna. By lunch, the speculation had mutated. She got jumped back in Chicago, someone said near the vending machines. She got suspended for punching Madison, said another. Her mom pulled her out, sued the school, said a third. None of it was true, but Sienna noticed something. Even her crew, the loyal orbit that spun around her name like moons, was starting to shift. The video had been funny on Friday. By Monday, it was something else. A few kids didn't laugh anymore. A couple avoided eye contact when the audio played. One girl, a sophomore named Lily, deleted the video from her phone and didn't repost it like the others. Small cracks, hairline fractures, but Sienna could feel them. And they bothered her. Because Kaia Brooks wasn't supposed to haunt the school. She was supposed to be forgotten. Tuesday, 8:12 a.m., the Hamilton High Security Office received an anonymous report, a student video in circulation containing digitally manipulated images of a minor without consent. An investigation was opened. By 9:30 a.m., the principal had confiscated 3 phones. By 10:45, Madison was pulled from class. By lunch, she was suspended. And the account? At Hoodie Queen Hamilton? Gone. Wiped. Vanished. Like it never existed. Sienna watched from her table as Madison returned to clean out her locker. No escort, no support, just silence, Kaia's kind of silence. And something in Sienna's chest twisted. But the day wasn't over. It happened after 6th period. The gym hallway, long, echoing, nearly empty as kids filtered toward final bell. Sienna was walking with Tori, scrolling her phone, when she spotted something strange taped to the center of the bulletin board. One sheet of paper, plain white, bold black text, no name, no logo, just words. She stepped closer. Tori leaned in too, frowning. The paper read, "When you laugh at someone's pain, it doesn't make you powerful. It makes you small." Underneath it, #Hamilton Truths. And below that, in faded ink, "She didn't break, you did." Sienna ripped it down. She looked around. No Kaia, no Hoodie in sight, but the words were already spreading. Someone had taken a picture. By the time 7th period began, it was on every phone in school. Kaia still hadn't come back, but somehow she was everywhere. The school that had laughed was now second-guessing itself. The girl they had humiliated wasn't hiding. She was watching. And Sienna, for the first time, she didn't feel in control. Wednesday, the bus pulled up to Hamilton High under a thick gray sky. The morning air was heavy with mist, as if the weather itself held its breath. And then she stepped off. Kaia Brooks, same black hoodie, same calm walk, same quiet fire behind the eyes. But this time, the silence around her wasn't because no one noticed. It was because everyone did. The moment her shoes hit the sidewalk, heads turned. Conversations stalled. Even the loudest girls near the entrance, usually laughing about parties or playlists, went mute for a beat. Because Kaia wasn't supposed to come back. She was supposed to break, disappear, fold under the weight of a lie wrapped in shame. But there she was, hood up, chin forward, shoulders squared. Unmoved, Sienna Hart stood by the front doors like always, sipping her overpriced oat milk latte, flanked by Tori and 2 girls from the tennis team. Her eyes narrowed as she watched Kaia approach. Not fearfully, not defiantly, just steadily. She whispered to Tori, "She's really got nerve, doesn't she?" But her voice was thinner today. The usual confidence had a tremble hiding in the edge. Tori didn't answer. She just kept watching. Everyone did. Kaia passed the fountain, the big oak in the courtyard, the group of seniors who'd once chuckled at her shoes. No one said a word. She walked like silence was hers to command, and that scared them more than any threat ever could. By second period, the tension in the school was a living thing. Kaia entered English class without flinching. She sat in her usual seat at the back, pulled out her worn leather journal, and waited. The teacher, Mrs. Carter, asked for someone to read the first paragraph of the assigned novel. It was Baldwin this week, The Fire Next Time. Normally, Kaia wouldn't raise her hand, but today she did. No drama, no speech, just two fingers in the air. Mrs. Carter blinked. Go ahead, Kaia. Kaia's voice came steady, measured, deep, like something pulled from under layers of silence. You were born where you were born and faced the future that you faced because you were Black and for no other reason. She paused, let the words settle. The room was silent. Kaia continued, letting each word land like weight. By the time she finished, even the kids who had once laughed at her were watching her differently. This wasn't a performance. It was a reminder that she had always had something to say. She just chose when to say it. By lunch, she walked in through the east doors, not rushed, not hiding, just present, fully. And this time, no one laughed. The same students who had passed around the deep fake days earlier now avoided eye contact. A few looked guilty, some just scared. But Kaia didn't need apologies. She didn't want pity. She was beyond both. She made her way through the tables, passing Sienna's crew. Sienna froze mid-sentence when Kaia walked by. Kaia didn't stop, didn't flinch. But she left something behind, a small white envelope. She set it on the edge of the table. Tori picked it up. What the hell is this? Sienna snatched it, opened it. Inside was a printout, a donation confirmation. $250 to Hamilton High's Student Mental Health Fund. Donated anonymously. Attached was a note, handwritten. If you're going to tear people down for fun, at least leave something behind to rebuild them. No name, but they knew. Sienna's hands shook slightly as she folded it back up. She tried to laugh. That's cute, she said, but no one joined her. Even Tori was quiet now. That afternoon, a new flyer appeared on the main bulletin board. No graffiti, no insults. Just a quote, typed in bold font. What they think is weakness is often just someone refusing to become like them. Below it, in smaller font, KB. It wasn't signed Kaia, but it might as well have been shouted from the roof. Students stopped and stared. Some took photos. A few even reposted it without mocking. Kaia watched none of this. She walked out of the building as quietly as she'd walked in, still in her hoodie, still herself. Only now, they saw her, not as a target, not as a myth, not even as the Black girl in the hoodie, but as a force. Power never goes quietly. It thrashes, it lies, and when it begins to slip, it claws at the ground, dragging everything down with it. Sienna Hart could feel it. For the first time since she crowned herself Queen of Hamilton High, people weren't laughing at her jokes anymore. They weren't reposting her stories with fire emojis or filling the comment sections with praise hands and hearts. Instead, they were quiet, and some of them, God forbid, were looking at Kaia. That was unacceptable, because Sienna knew the unspoken rule of their world. It wasn't just about being on top. It was about making sure no one else believed they could ever reach you, especially someone like Kaia Brooks. Black, from the South Side, quiet, wearing that hoodie like a shield, walking through school like she didn't need anyone. Sienna had tried to humiliate her. That didn't work. She tried to erase her. That didn't work either. Now it was time for the nuclear option. It started with whispers. That Kaia girl's scary. Real quiet ones always snap. I heard she was in a fight at her old school. No joke. My cousin said she saw her at a bus stop carrying pepper spray and brass knuckles. Lies. stitched from nothing. But lies in Hamilton didn't need facts. They just needed repetition. By the end of the week, the school was buzzing, and Sienna, behind the scenes, pulled every string. A Snapchat story here, a half-concerned comment to a teacher there. She just seems unstable, you know? By Friday, the principal's office had received 3 anonymous tips. Kaia Brooks, they said, was a threat. Monday, 10:38 a.m. Kaia sat in the library, second floor, back table, her favorite spot. A patch of sunlight spilled through the tall glass behind her, warming the edge of her sketchbook. She was drawing a pair of boxing gloves, not brand new ones, but worn, frayed at the fingers, like the ones her dad used to let her wear in the garage back in Bronzeville. Her hood was down, headphones in, pencil sharp, and then the world shifted. 3 sets of footsteps, firm, measured. She didn't even look up until they stopped at her table. Kaia Brooks? She pulled the headphones off slowly. A school security officer stood to her right. Another flanked her left. And in between them was Principal Reyes. Behind Reyes, a uniformed police officer. Real badge. Real sidearm. Her stomach dropped. "What's going on?" "There's been a report," Reyes said, voice low, tight. "A serious one." Kaia blinked. "Report about what?" "We need to check your belongings," the officer interrupted. "Someone claimed you may be carrying a weapon." The room went still. No one moved. A girl 3 tables down lowered her book slowly. A freshman at the printer gaped. Someone near the stairwell already had their phone up, pretending to text. Kaia's voice was quieter now. "A weapon? It's routine," Reyes said quickly, eyes darting. "We just need to be sure. Please cooperate." She didn't resist. She knew better. She pushed her chair back, standing slowly. Her bag was on the floor beside her. The officer reached for it. "May I?" he asked, but he was already opening it. Out came her sketchbook, a pencil case, a folded hoodie she kept for gym. No blade, no spray, no nothing. Still, he kept digging. Pulled out a tattered paperback copy of The Fire Next Time, a protein bar, her phone charger. Then finally he stopped. The silence hung like a thick curtain. The officer looked at Reyes. "She's clean." Kaia didn't breathe. Not yet. Reyes gave a stiff nod. "Thank you, officer. You may return to class, Kaia." She stared at him. "That's it?" He hesitated. "We'll follow up if necessary." She shoved everything back in her bag, hands shaking, but not from fear, from rage. She could feel the stares crawling across her skin. Not the looks of classmates anymore. Witnesses. Kaia walked out of the library slowly, past a hallway full of half-turned faces, past 2 boys whispering but not laughing, past a girl who dropped her eyes in shame, and she realized something. This wasn't about her. It never was. This was about power and what it does when it's afraid. Sienna wasn't trying to win anymore. She was trying to erase. And for the first time since she got to Hamilton, Kaia understood what she had to do next. Because this wasn't just about a hoodie anymore. It was about dignity. And Sienna had just stepped into a fight she didn't know how to finish. Kaia didn't go back to class that day. After the library incident, she walked straight past the lockers, down the east corridor, past the office, and out the front doors. No one stopped her. No one dared. Her feet carried her down the sidewalk toward the bus stop, but she didn't wait for a bus. She kept walking. Block after block, the noise of Hamilton High faded behind her, replaced by the wind rustling through tired Georgia trees and the low hum of traffic. She didn't cry. She didn't call her mom. She just walked. All that quiet rage, all that shame and heat settled into something colder, clearer, not defeat, clarity. Sienna had made a mistake, not just by calling the cops, but by making Kaia ready. Because before today, Kaia had been surviving. Now she was preparing. It was late afternoon when she reached the three-story brick apartment where she and her mother lived, Unit 3B, up the cracked concrete stairs, across from the corner laundromat. She expected the apartment to be quiet. Instead, the door was unlocked. Her pulse quickened. Kaia pushed it open, stepping into a living room that smelled like pine sol and takeout fried rice. The blinds were pulled halfway shut, and the hum of the fridge blended with the TV in the background. Low volume, muted courtroom drama. And sitting on the couch, elbows resting on his knees, was a man she hadn't seen in nearly 2 years. Her father, Marlon Brooks. Tall, broad-shouldered, beard thicker now, speckled with gray. He still wore his old mechanic boots, untied like always, and that same black leather jacket he'd had since before she was born. Kaia stopped cold. He looked up. Their eyes locked. Neither of them moved. "Hey," he said simply, voice low and rough like gravel. "Didn't think you'd be home this early." Kaia's throat tightened. "What are you doing here?" He nodded once, slowly, like he expected the question. "Your mom called," he said. "Told me what happened." Kaia set her bag down by the door, careful not to let her emotions spill. "She shouldn't have done that. She should have done it sooner," he replied, not missing a beat. "You should have called me yourself." "I didn't need—" "You do. That shut her up." Marlon stood, his frame casting a long shadow across the floor as the afternoon sun filtered through the blinds. "She told me about the video," he said, "about the fake account, the cop, the search period." Kaia stared at the floor, jaw clenched. "And," she finally said, voice sharper than intended. "And I ain't here to baby you," he said. "I know how you're built. I know what's in you." He stepped closer. "But I also know when something crosses a line." She looked up now. His eyes, dark, unwavering, held hers. "You've been taking hits since the day you showed up at that school, letting them laugh, letting them push, and you never swung?" She said nothing. "You showed restraint," he continued. "That's strength. But what they did today, that wasn't high school drama. That was assault on your character, on your future." Kaia swallowed. Her hands curled into fists at her sides. "She called the police on me," she whispered. "Said I had a weapon, like I was some threat." Marlon didn't blink, because to people like her, a black girl with self-respect is always a threat. Kaia's throat burned. He walked to the table, picked something up and handed it to her. A file, slim, neat, manila folder. Inside, paperwork, school policy sheets, anti-bullying clause, code of conduct, and at the bottom, a letter drafted from an attorney. "I got a friend," Marlon said, "civil rights lawyer. Owes me a favor. If you want to pursue it, we can. Press charges, file a complaint, call the board. Hell, go public." Kaia stared at the folder. It felt heavy, like justice, like consequence. But she shook her head. "Not yet." Marlon raised an eyebrow. "You sure?" She nodded. "I'm not finished with her." A long silence stretched between them. Then he smiled. Not a soft smile, not a warm one, a proud one. That same half-smirk he gave her the first time she landed a clean jab in the garage. "All right," he said, "then I'll back your play." Kaia exhaled, then walked to her room, picked up her hoodie from the floor, and pulled it over her head like armor. Sienna had tried to use the system against her. But now, Kaia was going to use the truth against her. And the fight wasn't just personal anymore, it was public. Tuesday morning. Hamilton High hadn't changed. The marble floors still gleamed under the fluorescent lights. The banners still hung from the rafters, celebrating academic decathlons and lacrosse victories. And Sienna Hart still sat at her usual table in the middle of the cafeteria, legs crossed, voice lifted just loud enough for those nearby to hear. But something was different. The halls didn't part for her the way they used to, and the glances she received weren't admiration anymore. They were doubt, suspicion, and Kaia Brooks was back. She stepped into the school with her hoodie up, shoulders squared and eyes forward. No one laughed this time. No one dared. Even the security guards who had escorted her out of the library yesterday nodded at her, small, almost imperceptible, but it was there. Recognition, respect. Kaia didn't look at them. She didn't need to. She walked straight to the office. Principal Reyes was waiting. "Miss Brooks," he said, standing from his desk, stiff with discomfort. "I heard from your mother this morning. She said you'd be returning today." Kaia nodded, her backpack still on. "I need to talk to you," he continued, "to clarify what happened yesterday. The report came from a student. We're—" "I know who it came from," Kaia interrupted. Her voice wasn't loud, but it landed like a slap in the still room. "And I have something to share too." She set her backpack down, unzipped it. Out came a flash drive. Video, audio, screenshots, messages. She placed it gently on the desk. Proof that everything said about me, every rumor, was manufactured. By one person. Reyes hesitated. Kaia tilted her head. "Unless," she said, "you'd rather we handle this through the school board and my father's attorney." His face changed. "I'll look into it immediately." "No," she said, meeting his eyes. "Not immediately. Now, by fourth period, the school knew. Because the truth travels just as fast as a lie when it's carrying receipts. Screenshots of Sienna's anonymous posts, snippets of audio where she coached her friends on what to say, a screen-recorded video of her group's group chat titled HHS Rain with messages like, "Let's say she made a threat. Nobody will question it. She's scary quiet. It'll be believable. I want her gone, period." And finally, an audio clip. Sienna's voice unmistakable. "If the school sees her as dangerous, they'll have to remove her. She'll break eventually. Watch." Someone leaked the files to the school forum. And once it was out, there was no taking it back. Lunch was no longer Sienna's stage. Kaia walked in calmly. No fanfare, no dramatics. But as she passed each table, students fell silent. Not in fear, but in awe. Because it wasn't just that she was right. It was that she hadn't flinched, even when the world turned on her. Sienna sat at her usual table, phone in hand, eyes wide, pale beneath her perfect foundation. Madison and Tori were gone, and when Kaia passed, she didn't stop. But she did pause, just slightly, and dropped one thing onto Sienna's tray. A folded piece of notebook paper. "Inside, you thought I'd break. You didn't know I was built for this. No signature, just that." And Sienna? She didn't move. Didn't speak, didn't blink. Because for the first time in her life, she wasn't feared, she wasn't followed, she wasn't the queen. She was alone. Kaia walked to the far table, set her lunch down, and sat. Not in the back, not in hiding, right in the open. And this time, other students joined her. First a freshman girl, then a boy from band, then one of the seniors who used to laugh at her hoodie in week 1. They sat quietly, no big words, no speeches, just presence. Because they finally saw what Kaia had always been, not weak, not angry, just unshakable. The living room was quiet, the kind of quiet that settles after a storm, not peaceful, not chaotic, but dense, like something had been torn loose and was still floating in the air, waiting to land. Kaia sat cross-legged on the couch, hoodie on, sketchbook open in her lap. She wasn't drawing, just running her fingers over a page filled with old lines, half-formed ideas. Her mind was somewhere else, still walking the hallways of Hamilton, still hearing whispers morph into stares, still remembering the moment Sienna Hart's empire began to crumble. Across the room, her father leaned against the kitchen counter. Marlon Brooks, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the muted TV like it owed him something. A rerun of Law and Order played without sound. Neither of them needed the volume to understand the story. "I don't like how close it got," he said suddenly, breaking the stillness. Kaia didn't look up. I handled it. Barely. I didn't ask for a rescue. Marlon pushed off the counter, walked to the window, pulled the blinds just enough to glance out, then let them fall. I'm not here to rescue you, he said. I'm here to remind you. You don't have to fight clean when the other side's throwing dirt. Kaia finally looked up. Her face was unreadable, but her eyes were sharp. I didn't throw dirt. I showed truth. Marlon nodded just once. Yeah, you did. He didn't say more, but she could hear what he left hanging in the space between them. This ain't over. She knew it too. Because power like Sienna's didn't just go away. It retreated. It circled back. And sure enough, a knock came at the door. 3 slow, heavy hits. Kaia stiffened. Marlon turned. Didn't ask who it was. Just moved. He stepped to the door with calm precision, his boots thudding softly on the scuffed laminate floor. He didn't peek through the eye hole, just opened the door halfway. On the other side stood a man in a navy suit, immaculate, jaw tight, posture straight, silver at his temples. Behind him, a black luxury SUV idled at the curb, lights on, engine humming. The man didn't smile. Marlon Brooks? Marlon didn't answer. His stance shifted slightly, barely noticeable, shoulders squared, eyes colder now. I'm Richard Hart, the man said, Sienna's father. Kaia stood up slowly, now fully alert. Marlon tilted his head, voice quiet. I know who you are. Richard's gaze flicked past Marlon into the room. He spotted Kaia. His mouth tightened. We need to talk, he said. Marlon didn't move. About what? My daughter's been doxxed, humiliated. Now she's under review for disciplinary action. That, he nodded toward Kaia. That came from her. Kaia stepped forward, but Marlon raised a hand without looking back. A silent wait. And, he said. She's 16, Richard continued. She made a mistake. What your daughter did, filing a formal complaint, leaking private conversations, pushing the school board, was excessive. Kaia's breath caught. Excessive? She said sharply, stepping around her father. She lied, Kaia said. She put a cop in front of me. That wasn't a mistake. That was intentional. And what I did was justice. Richard's face twitched. You embarrassed her. Kaia's voice lowered. She tried to ruin me. Now Marlon turned fully, stepping aside just enough to make it clear he had no intention of backing down. Not here. Not for this man. You came to my door, he said, voice flat, because you thought you could shame her into silence. I came to talk, Richard snapped, because this is getting out of hand. No, Marlon said. This is what happens when truth steps out the back door and walks through the front. Richard exhaled through his nose, jaw clenched. I'm a lawyer, he said. You could what? Marlon stepped closer now. Sue a 17-year-old black girl for telling the truth? File a restraining order because your daughter finally got told no? The two men stood inches apart, one in a $1,000 suit, one in oil-stained boots. Only one of them looked dangerous. Richard's eyes dropped. I'm just trying to protect my family. Marlon leaned in, voice like steel. So am I. A long, taut silence passed. Then Richard stepped back. His eyes flicked to Kaia one more time. Nothing but disdain. And then he turned and walked to his car. The SUV pulled off without a word. Marlon closed the door softly. Kaia stood frozen. Then she looked at her father. He didn't smile, didn't gloat, just nodded. You good? He asked. Kaia breathed deep, then nodded back. I'm good. By Thursday morning, the rumors weren't just whispers in the hallway anymore. They had names, times, screenshots. Kaia had returned to school with the calm of someone who already knew what was coming. Not because she'd planned it, but because she understood exactly how people like Richard Hart moved. When men like him got backed into a corner, they didn't retreat. They called meetings. And this one had a name: Emergency Review Committee, Hamilton High Disciplinary Panel. Date: Friday 5 p.m. Purpose: to assess allegations of harassment, retaliation, and digital misconduct involving students Kaia Brooks and Sienna Hart. Principal Reyes pretended it was standard protocol, but everyone knew better. This was a move, and Kaia was the target again. That night, the living room lights stayed on late. Kaia sat at the kitchen table, flipping through printed emails, school bylaws, and conduct policies. Her mom was asleep, but Marlon stood by the window, arms crossed, watching the world outside like it owed him something. "This ain't a hearing," he muttered. "It's a setup." Kaia didn't look up. "Then we make it a reckoning." He turned. The light caught the edges of his face. Worn, proud, unreadable. "You sure about this?" She nodded. "I don't want revenge. I want truth. In front of everyone." Marlon exhaled. "Then we do it your way." He reached into a small black case on the counter, pulled out a thumb drive. "What's that?" "Testimony," he said, "from 3 kids who saw the whole thing go down. From the library, from the hallway, from the security office." He set it down in front of her. "You're not going in there alone." Kaia stared at it, her hands strong from years of shadowboxing, still calloused from the jump rope burns, wrapped around it gently. She was ready. Friday, 4:57 p.m. Hamilton High's auditorium wasn't built for hearings. It was made for orchestra concerts and college night PowerPoints. But now it had become something else. A spotlight. Faculty sat in a row on the stage. Mr. Reyes at the center. Ms. Halston from counseling, a district representative who looked like he hated being there. In the crowd, students, parents, teachers, and near the back, standing tall in a worn leather jacket, Marlon Brooks, silent, watching. Kaia sat alone in the second row, hood down, notes in her lap, calm. Then they walked in, Sienna Hart and Richard Hart. Sienna wore white. Of course she did. Hair in a soft wave, lips barely glossed, eyes wide like she'd just survived something instead of created it. She sat in the front row, 2 seats down, didn't look at Kaia. Richard approached the panel and shook hands like it was a board meeting. "Thank you for accommodating this review," he said smoothly. "I'm only here to ensure fair treatment for both students." Kaia didn't flinch. Not when Reyes cleared his throat, not when the murmurs began, not even when they called her name. She stood, walked to the podium. The mic crackled. Her voice didn't. "My name is Kaia Brooks," she began. "I transferred to Hamilton High 3 months ago. Since the second week of school, I've been harassed, mocked, edited into videos without consent, and finally, falsely accused of carrying a weapon." She paused. The room was still. "I didn't fight back with rumors or fists. I responded with truth. And when I did, I was called a threat." She pulled out a printed message. "This is a screenshot from a group chat where I was called a ghetto disease that needs to be quarantined." It was sent by Sienna Hart's account. Gas rippled. "But I'm not here to destroy anyone," she said. "I'm here to stop a pattern. Not just at the school, but in schools like it, where kids like me are targets before we're even seen as people." She took a breath, met Reyes's eyes. "And if standing up for myself makes me a threat, maybe it's not me you should be worried about." She stepped back. Silence, not one whisper. Then, applause from the back row. It started with a single clap. Marlon. Then a girl from Kaia's history class. Then another. Until the room wasn't silent anymore. Richard stood, furious. "This isn't a trial. This is a spectacle." But Reyes raised a hand. "For once," he said, voice measured, "maybe the truth should be a spectacle." And for the first time, Sienna looked small. Not because Kaia made her that way, but because the mask had fallen and there was nothing behind it. The verdict didn't come from a gavel. There was no dramatic declaration, No slamming of folders or loud calls for order. It came with silence, with the way Mr. Reyes sat back in his chair, exhaled slowly, and looked not at Kaia, but at Sienna. "We've reviewed the evidence," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, but somehow filling the entire auditorium. "The screenshots, the videos, the testimony, all of it confirms what's been denied." He paused. The misconduct didn't come from Kaia Brooks. Richard Hart's jaw flexed. Sienna sat frozen, eyes locked on the floor, hands clenched in her lap. "It came," Reyes continued, "from your daughter." A hush fell, the kind that sucked all the air from a room and left only gravity behind. The district representative leaned forward. "Effective immediately, Sienna Hart is suspended from all extracurricular activities. Pending further review, she will also be removed from student government and placed on behavioral probation, and we will be conducting a school-wide digital conduct audit." Kaia didn't smile. She didn't need to. Her father, standing in the back, nodded once. The panel dismissed. Parents began filing out. Some gave Kaia small nods as they passed. Grateful, maybe, or guilty. Kaia stayed seated. She didn't move, didn't speak, until the room had nearly emptied. Then she stood, stepped down from the stage, and quietly headed for the doors. That was always her way. No victory laps, just the walk. But halfway to the exit, someone called out, "Kaia!" She turned. Sienna stood a few steps behind. Alone. No Tory, no Madison, no lawyer in a suit. Just a girl. Pale, small, hollow around the eyes. Kaia said nothing. Sienna took a breath. "I didn't think it would go that far," she said. "The cop? That wasn't supposed to happen." Kaia blinked slowly. "But it did." Sienna looked down, then back up. "You really hate me now, don't you?" Kaia's voice was calm. "I don't have the energy to hate you." That landed harder than any insult could have. Sienna looked like she might say something else. An apology, maybe, or a lie. But Kaia was already walking away. She didn't need closure. She didn't need anything from her. Because this wasn't about being seen anymore. It was about being whole. Outside, the sky was pale orange, streaked with purple. The sun slipping behind the trees. Fall air crisp enough to sting if you stood still too long. Kaia pulled up her hoodie. Marlon waited beside the car, arms crossed, keys in hand. "How you feel?" he asked as she approached. Kaia shrugged. "Like I did what I needed to do." He nodded. "You did." She looked up at him. "You think it's over?" He took a long breath. "Not even close." She didn't flinch. "Good," she said, "because neither am I." Back home, the living room felt warmer, lived in, safe. Kaia sat on the couch, pulled out her sketchbook, and finally turned to a fresh page. No gloves this time. No fire. No broken edges. Just her. Standing, hoodie up, eyes forward, alone, but whole. She drew herself the way she saw herself now. Not silent, not angry, not broken. Just true. The collapse didn't happen all at once. It started with an email. Friday night, 11:03 p.m. Subject line, revocation of internship offer, Spring Legislative Youth Forum. Sender, Senator Gail Winthrop's office. Sienna opened it in bed, her silk sheets pulled high around her chest, soft jazz playing through her Bluetooth speaker. She blinked twice, rereading the subject. Then clicked. "Dear Ms. Hart, after recent developments and reports concerning your conduct at Hamilton High, the selection committee has unanimously decided to withdraw your participation from our youth mentorship program. We wish you the best moving forward." She didn't finish the message. The phone slipped from her fingers, her breath caught in her chest. This wasn't some school detention. This was her future. By Monday, it was everywhere. The same platforms where she once ruled were now lined with distance. Madison unfollowed her on Instagram. Tori ghosted her. A popular TikToker posted a video, POV, watching the Queen of Hamilton High get humbled by the girl she tried to erase. 92,000 likes in 2 hours. People who once fought to sit at her lunch table now whispered behind her back in pity and relief. She had it coming, someone muttered in the hallway. She thought she was untouchable. I heard she's losing her rec letters. It wasn't a scandal anymore. It was a reckoning. And Sienna Hart? She wasn't built to bleed quietly. In the counselor's office, Kaia sat across from Ms. Halston, hands folded, legs crossed. I wanted to check in, the woman said gently. After everything. Kaia didn't say much, just offered a small nod. I'm good. Halston hesitated. There's a lot of attention on this. On you. You okay with that? Kaia exhaled slowly, then shrugged. I didn't ask for attention, she said. I asked to be left alone. Halston smiled faintly. Funny thing about telling the truth, it's loud even when you whisper it. Kaia didn't smile back, but her eyes softened. Then Halston slid a paper across the table. Early decision recommendation from Mr. Reyes. Full support for your application to Columbia. Kaia stared at it. No applause, no surprise. Just quiet, steady acknowledgement. She folded the paper and tucked it in her bag. Thank you, she said, and stood. Later that day, as Kaia moved through the halls, she passed Sienna at her locker. Gone were the crowd of followers. Gone were the name-brand accessories. The iPad with the matching stylus, the monogram tote bag. She looked smaller, hair pulled into a tight bun, eyes down, her fingers trembling as she turned the combination lock. Kaia didn't stop. She didn't gloat. She didn't speak. But in that moment, Sienna looked up. Their eyes met, and Kaia saw something new. Not hatred, not fear, not even shame, just truth. The truth of someone who finally understood that power, when misused, doesn't just break others, it hollows you out from the inside. Kaia nodded once. Sienna looked away. After school, Kaia walked home the long way, past the park, past the community center with its cracked basketball courts and faded murals, past the old barber shop where her dad used to take her brother every Saturday morning. She stopped at the corner bodega and bought a single bottle of water. The man behind the counter, Mr. Jamal, slid it across with a nod. You good, little sis? Kaia smiled faintly. Yeah. He raised an eyebrow. You look lighter. She nodded. Feels like the weight ain't mine anymore. That night at home, her father was in the kitchen, frying catfish. The smell wrapped around the apartment like a blanket. Kaia stood in the doorway watching him, his back steady, movements sure, like nothing in the world could shake him. You here? She said. He didn't turn. Bout the girl? Yeah, he flipped a filet. Let it sizzle. She'll be all right. One day. You think she deserves that? Think everybody deserves a chance to rebuild. Doesn't mean you gotta hand 'em the bricks. Kaia didn't say anything for a long time. Then, I didn't win. Marlon finally turned to her. No, he said. You didn't. You endured. He pointed at her chest. And that's something nobody can take from you. It was Principal Reyes who asked. He caught Kaia between third and fourth period, just outside the main office where the flag hung stiff behind the glass panel. We're holding a student assembly Friday, he said. Digital conduct, community culture, all of that. We'd like you to speak. Kaia blinked. Me? Reyes smiled awkwardly. You're the reason we're having it. She stared at him a moment longer than necessary, letting his words settle. Not bitter, just measured. I'm not a speaker, she said. Maybe not, he replied. But you are a voice. Kaia didn't answer. She walked away without saying yes. But by that afternoon, her name was already on the program. Friday came like a tide. The gym was packed. Bleachers filled with students, teachers sitting in the folding chairs near the front. School assemblies at Hamilton were usually about sportsmanship, scholarship, or fundraising, never accountability. Never the kind of truth Kaia carried like oxygen. She stood behind the stage curtain, hands in her hoodie pocket, breathing slowly. She could feel it, eyes, expectations, even fear. But this time it wasn't her fear. It belonged to everyone who knew they'd stayed silent too long. Mr. Reyes introduced her with careful words, a student who has shown extraordinary resilience and leadership under pressure. The mic buzzed gently as she stepped to the podium. Kaia didn't wear anything special, just her hoodie, faded black, the one that had followed her from Bronzeville, through the chaos to this very moment. She looked out over the crowd, then began. My name is Kaia Brooks. Some of you know me, most of you don't, but almost all of you have heard about me. Silence, no movement. She had them. When I came to Hamilton, I didn't want attention. I didn't want to be popular. I just wanted space to be who I am without fear, without assumption. She let that word hang in the air. Assumption. That didn't happen. A murmur in the back, then quiet again. Instead, I was followed, filmed, lied about, and finally accused of something I didn't do, just because of how I look, how I speak, or how I don't. Kaia's hands tightened on the podium edge. I didn't speak up at first. I stayed quiet. But silence in a place like this doesn't protect you. It becomes your prison. And I'm done being quiet. She looked up now, gaze steady. This isn't just about me and Sienna, or about one hallway fight or one video. This is about a culture that protects cruelty when it's wrapped in popularity, that excuses harm when it's committed by someone wearing the right jacket. More movement now, teachers shifting, students listening hard. Some of you helped spread those lies. Some of you watched and said nothing. Some of you laughed and kept scrolling. Her tone didn't accuse. It revealed. I'm not asking for an apology. I'm asking for a mirror. A few heads dropped. Because one day, you'll be the one on the outside. And you'll remember how easy it was to be forgotten, to be mocked, and how powerful it felt, even for a second, to be the one holding the camera instead of the target. She stepped back from the mic for a moment, then forward again. I survived this year, but I shouldn't have had to. And with that, she ended. No slogans, no hashtags, no applause expected. But it came anyway, one clap, then another. Then it spread like a wave of truth cracking through glass. Kaia didn't smile. She just walked off stage, back through the curtain, back into herself. Later that day, Sienna Hart passed her in the hallway. Alone. They didn't speak, but Sienna didn't sneer, didn't scoff. She just looked, exposed, human. Kaia kept walking because she had nothing left to prove. In the art room, she stayed after class to finish a new piece. Charcoal lines, a face, not hers, a black girl with a hoodie, eyes closed, jaw steady, wind blowing the strings of her sweatshirt sideways, like flags in a storm. Underneath, she wrote one sentence. They tried to name me weak. I redefined strength. She pinned it on the board. No signature, just the image. It was enough. Saturday morning came with the kind of cold that bit through sleeves and whispered under doors. Most kids at Hamilton were still in bed, half scrolling through socials, half ignoring homework they'd never really need. But on the south side of town, in a gym that hadn't seen new paint since the Obama administration, Kaia Brooks stood lacing her gloves. The place smelled like sweat, leather, and memory. Sunlight bled through the dirty window panes, streaking across the ring in gold slants. She hadn't been here in months, not since her last spar before the move. Back when she still thought staying quiet would keep her safe. Back before the hoodie became her shield. Now the hoodie was folded neatly on a bench, and Kaia was stepping into the ring. Across from her, Marlon Brooks stood silent, wrapping his wrists with precision. Same boots, same frown, Same quiet power. He nodded once, 3 rounds. Kaia nodded back. Three's enough. The bell rang, and with it, everything else fell away. No classmates, no hallway stairs, no podiums, no panels, no rumors, just movement. She stepped light, gloves up, heart steady. Marlon led with a soft jab, testing, not threatening. You didn't flinch, he muttered, stepping back. Kaia smirked. You didn't mean it. He came again, faster. Kaia slipped right, pivoted, jabbed low. You've been practicing, he said. I've been surviving. They circled. What's the difference? She stopped, lifted her gloves, then said clearly, Now I know. Between rounds, they sat on the edge of the ring. Kaia's chest rose and fell with clean rhythm, sweat glinting at her temple. Her father handed her a bottle of water. She drank, then passed it back. You didn't have to come back here, he said. Kaia shrugged, felt like time. Marlon nodded toward the heavy bag in the corner, the one she used to kick when she got frustrated. You remember what I used to say about the ring? Kaia rolled her eyes. The ring don't lie. You said it every week. He chuckled. Still true. Kaia looked down at her gloves. I thought when this was all over, I'd feel finished. You don't? She shook her head. Feels like I just got started. Round 2. They move faster now. Not a fight, an echo of one, a rhythm, trust. Kaia's footwork had sharpened, her jabs lighter. She wasn't throwing punches to land. She was dancing with the weight. You carried yourself through that school like a fighter, Marlon grunted, blocking a left. Kaia breathed deep, ducked under his right. I carried everyone's weight. He slowed. You still are? She stopped, gloves at her sides. I don't want to. You don't have to. They stood still in the center. Then Kaia smiled, a small one. I think I finally believe that. The final round was quiet. Just them, the squeak of sneakers, the distant hum of a city still waking up. When the bell rang, they didn't collapse like they used to, didn't high-five or grin. They just stood there, 2 fighters. One storm weathered, one storm passed on. Later in the locker room, Kaia peeled the tape from her knuckles slowly. The ache in her shoulders was welcome, earned. She looked at herself in the mirror, not checking for bruises, just looking. The girl in the reflection wasn't who she was last month. Not the quiet one, not the target, not the one hiding in plain sight. She saw someone sharper, stronger, seen. She pulled on her hoodie, not out of habit, not out of need, but because it still belonged to her. Only now she wore it differently, not as a disguise, but as a legacy. That evening, as golden light spilled into the apartment, she sat at the kitchen table with her sketchbook. Her mom cooked in the background, fried onions and garlic mixing into the air like home. Kaia flipped to a blank page, took her pencil, and drew. First the outline of a girl in a ring, then the crowd blurred, then the gloves hanging from the girl's shoulders untied. She shaded in the hoodie. Then below the drawing, wrote in bold, Power doesn't come from swinging first. It comes from deciding when you're done being hit. She closed the book, exhaled, and smiled, because for the first time in her life, Kaia wasn't defending herself. She was defining herself. The youth center smelled like crayons, worn-out rubber flooring, and hope that hadn't been let down. Yet. It sat on the edge of Claymore Avenue, just a block past the bus stop where Kaia used to wait with her headphones in and her eyes on the cracks in the concrete. She hadn't been back in years, not since her brother left for the army, not since her world got louder than her fists. Now she was here because someone asked her to be. Miss Donnell, who ran the after-school mentorship program, had left Kaia a voicemail 2 days ago. Baby, I heard about what happened at that school. Whatever you said, however you said it, they needed to hear it. Now it's your turn to say it to somebody else. Kaia didn't respond right away. She let the message sit, let herself sit with it. But when Friday came, she put on her cleanest hoodie, packed her sketchbook, and walked the 6 blocks to where her story started. Room B smelled like sweat and fruit snacks. Folding chairs lined up in rows, a faded poster on the wall that read, "Strong girls lift each other." A dozen middle school girls sat in scattered positions, some slouched, some cross-legged on tables, a couple already pulling out their phones. Miss Donnell clapped twice. "Ladies, look alive. This is Kaia Brooks. Y'all seen the videos, heard the stories. She's not here to impress you. She's here because she already lived what some of y'all are walking through." Kaia gave a small wave. "Hey." A few of the girls murmured, "Hi." But most just looked her up and down, judging, measuring, testing. That was fine. She was used to that. Kaia walked slowly to the front, pulling her hoodie sleeves over her palms. Then quietly she began, "I used to think being strong meant staying silent, that if I just kept my head down, people would leave me alone." A few heads turned. One girl in the second row tilted her head. Kaia continued, "But silence doesn't stop people from seeing you as a threat, or from trying to make you feel like nothing." Someone in the back scoffed under their breath. Kaia smiled. "You don't have to believe me. I wouldn't have believed me either at your age." That got a few chuckles. Then her eyes caught on one girl in particular. Back row, hoodie up, arms crossed, face turned slightly toward the wall, like she didn't want to be seen, but did want to watch. Kaia knew that posture, knew that weight. She turned toward her without calling her out. "You don't have to talk," Kaia said, "but just know, there's nothing wrong with being quiet. What matters is that when you do speak, you own every word." Silence, then a soft voice near the front. "How'd you know when to speak up?" Kaia paused and then said, "When I realized that staying quiet was letting them win." She walked to the whiteboard, picked up a marker, wrote one word, "Story." "This," she said, "is what they'll try to take from you." She turned. "Not your sneakers, not your phone, not your music, your story. The one where you get to say who you are and why you matter and where you're going." She let that sit for a beat, then capped the marker. "Don't let anyone rewrite it for you." After the session, the girls filed out slowly, quieter than they'd come in. Some offered quick waves. One handed her a folded note that simply read, "Thanks for saying it out loud." But the girl in the back row? She stayed. Kaia didn't speak, just waited. After a minute, the girl stepped forward, kept her hood up. "My name's Lenny," she said. "People call me Mouse." Kaia smiled gently. "You like that name?" The girl shook her head. "Then don't answer to it," Kaia said. Lenny looked down, then back up. "They say I'm weird because I don't talk." Kaia leaned against the table. "So what? They post stuff, take pictures, make up lies." Kaia's face didn't change, but her voice dropped an inch lower. "I know." Lenny hesitated, then asked, "What did you do when it got too much?" Kaia thought for a long time, then answered, "I remembered who raised me, and I got louder than their lies." It was 2 weeks later when the text came in. Kaia had just finished a late study session at the public library, her backpack full of books, and her mind overloaded with essays about power, voice, and systems she was tired of analyzing. She was halfway home, walking beneath flickering streetlights, when her phone buzzed in her hoodie pocket. "Turn. Number, it's Lenny. I hope it's okay. I got your number from Miss Donnell. Can you talk?" Kaia didn't hesitate. "Kaia. Yeah, you good?" No reply. "Then I messed up." Kaia stopped walking. She looked around. The night air was still. The traffic light at the corner blinked yellow into nothing. She typed, "Kaia, where are you?" 10 minutes later, she was jogging toward the edge of Franklin Park. It was the spot kids used to hide out when they skipped class or when they didn't want to go home. The playground was empty. The swing chains clinked in the wind like loose keys, and on the bench near the basketball court, head down, hoodie pulled tight. Lenny. Kaia slowed her steps, sat down next to her, didn't speak right away, just waited. Lenny was shaking. "My mom found the messages," she said finally. Her voice was raw, like it had scraped its way out of her throat. She didn't say anything, just looked at me, like I was broken. Kaia turned toward her slowly. "Messages from who?" Lenny sniffed, wiped her sleeve across her face. "They made a fake account. Said I tried to send nudes, posted screenshots, said I was begging for attention." Kaia closed her eyes. Same playbook, same hate, just a new target. "They said I talk too little," Lenny whispered. "Then they said I'm desperate." She looked up now and Kaia saw it, what she remembered from her own reflection not long ago. That look of almost gone, almost done. "I thought if I disappeared," Lenny said, "it would finally stop." Kaia reached out, took the girl's hand. "You don't disappear," she said. "You make them uncomfortable forever thinking they could erase you." Lenny let the words hang, let them wrap around her, let them soften the edge that had been pulling at her all day. Then she looked at Kaia. "Can I ask you something? Anything? How do you know you're strong?" Kaia didn't answer right away. Her voice when it came was quiet. "You don't. Not at first. You just know you're still here." Lenny wiped her nose with the sleeve of her oversized hoodie. "Are you mad all the time?" Kaia thought about that. "I was. But anger eats your voice if you let it. Now I'm just clear." Lenny tilted her head. "Clear?" Kaia nodded. "About who I am. About what I won't let slide. About what I want." They sat in silence again, this time not heavy, just still. Then Lenny asked, "Can I write my story?" Kaia smiled just a little. "You have to." By the end of the week, Lenny had dropped the nickname Mouse. She stopped sitting alone at lunch. She joined the poetry club. She wrote a piece called "What I Didn't Say But Should Have" and read it out loud at the youth center showcase. Her voice cracked on the last line, but she didn't stop. Kaia sat in the back, arms crossed, hoodie up. When Lenny finished, the room clapped. But Kaia didn't clap. She nodded, because some victories don't need noise. After the show, Lenny walked over, handed Kaia a folded piece of notebook paper. "Read it later," she said, then walked off to hug her mom. Kaia waited until she was home, curled up on the couch with her sketchbook beside her. She opened the note. It said, "You didn't save me. You reminded me I could save myself. This hoodie doesn't hide me anymore. It introduces me." Kaia smiled, then turned to a fresh page in her sketchbook and began to draw. A girl, standing on a stage, eyes forward, hoodie up. Below it, she wrote, "Strength is contagious, and so is truth." The auditorium buzzed with chatter, the kind of forced excitement that always filled end-of-year assemblies. Seniors in half-zipped gowns slouched in their chairs. Juniors scanned the crowd for their friends, and teachers tried, half-heartedly, to enforce order. But somewhere under the hum, there was something else, a stillness. Like the school itself was holding its breath, waiting. Principal Reyes walked to the podium, shuffling papers he'd already memorized, adjusting the mic with fingers that moved slower than usual. He cleared his throat. This year, Hamilton High was tested, not just academically, but morally. The room quieted. We were reminded that strength doesn't always look like a GPA or a trophy. Sometimes strength is wearing the same hoodie every day, knowing the weight it carries. Sometimes strength is not clapping back, but standing still until the truth echoes louder than any lie. A pause. And sometimes strength is a 17-year-old girl who chose not to fight, but to endure. He looked toward the far corner of the gym where Kaia stood. No spotlight, no announcement, just her, hoodie on, back straight, watching, "We want to honor Kaia Brooks," Rhea said, "not just for surviving, but for teaching us how to listen." The applause started slowly. One hand, then another. Then the flood. It wasn't polite. It wasn't performative. It was real, but Kaia didn't move. She stood in place, hands deep in her pockets, eyes calm. And after a few seconds, while the clapping still rolled across the bleachers, she turned and walked out. Outside, the sky was a flat silver. Rain clouds, soft and uncertain, hung above the school like they were deciding whether to cry or not. Kaia walked down the sidewalk past the flagpole, past the windows that once reflected her silence back at her like judgment. She didn't rush, didn't look back. The gym behind her still echoed with her name, but she wasn't chasing applause. She wasn't chasing anything. She was choosing. The streets near the school looked different now. Not physically, still the same cracked sidewalks, same corner store with the dusty Gatorade fridge. But Kaia saw them differently. This was the same walk she took that first week of school. Back then, she'd walked it invisible, then infamous, then misunderstood. Now? Now she walked it as herself, and that made everything new. At the mural wall behind the old cafeteria, she stopped. The art class had painted it over the spring. Bright colors, messages of unity and growth, and hope that looked good on applications. But in the corner, where the shadows of the building hid around noon, there was a new square. Black background, white outline, a girl in a hoodie. No face, no name. But Kaia knew who it was. She stepped closer. Read the words written underneath. They called her quiet. They meant powerful. No tag, no credit, but she knew. Lenny. Kaia sat on the low stone ledge near the mural, pulled out her sketchbook, flipped past pages filled with fists and fire and broken glass. She stopped at a blank page. Then with her pencil began drawing. A single figure. Not in a hoodie this time, but holding it in one hand. Wind in her hair, eyes closed, chin high. Below the image she wrote, "I don't need to be heard by everyone, just by the girl who comes next." That night back home, her dad knocked on her bedroom door. "You see the mural?" he asked. Kaia nodded. "Yeah. You do that?" She shook her head. "A student." He paused. "Feels like your words." Kaia leaned back in her chair. Maybe they were just listening. He smiled, a small sideways thing, then turned to go. But before he left, he said, "Your story's just starting, you know." She nodded. "I know." And when the door closed, Kaia looked at the hoodie hanging from the back of her chair. It wasn't armor anymore. It was proof. Proof that she had walked through fire and come out clean. That she had been made a target and turned it into a mirror. That she had stood alone and reminded the world, "I'm still here." The robe didn't fit quite right. Kaia stood in front of the mirror in her mom's bedroom, fidgeting with the sleeves. The material itched, the zipper snagged on the cord of her hoodie, and the maroon color washed her out. But she didn't care, because it was hers and not borrowed, not handed down, earned. Her mother leaned against the doorframe, arms folded, eyes glistening just enough to pretend it was from dust. She didn't speak for a while, just watched her daughter, her silent fighter, adjust the cap that didn't want to sit right over her curls. "You sure you don't want me to press your hair for the pictures?" she finally asked, teasing. Kaia grinned. "Nah, let 'em see what got me through." Her mom walked over, touched the edge of the hood still tucked beneath the robe. "You really wearing this under it?" Kaia nodded. "I wore it when they tried to break me. I'm wearing it when I show them I didn't." Her mom didn't argue. She just said, "That's my girl," and stepped out of the way. Hamilton's graduation ceremony took place on the football field. Folding chairs lined the grass in perfect symmetry, white folding tents shielding the stage from the sun. A brass band rehearsed one last time near the goalpost, while parents took pictures like their memories couldn't be trusted. Kaia arrived late on purpose, not to make a scene, just to avoid the small talk. She slipped into her seat in the second row from the back, hoodie zipped under her robe, tassel hanging just off-center. No makeup, no glitter, just presence. From the crowd, she could already hear her name buzzing in low murmurs. There she is. That's the one who... She's the girl in the hoodie. She didn't flinch. Let them say what they needed. Her story didn't live in whispers anymore. It walked in broad daylight. When her name was called, there was no orchestra swell, no spotlight. Just two words from the speaker. Kaia Brooks. She stood, walked, crossed the stage, no stumble, no bow, no wave. She shook the principal's hand, took her diploma, and looked out at the bleachers. Rows and rows of people, some clapping, some standing, some just watching. She didn't look for Sienna. She didn't need to. This moment wasn't about proving anything to her. It was about proving something to herself, that she could walk through a space that once tried to erase her and leave footprints behind. Afterward, while parents swarmed the graduates with bouquets and camera phones, Kaia ducked out the side gate. She walked through the back of the school grounds onto the sidewalk, then toward the city. No crowd, no ceremony, just her and her hoodie. The air was warm, thick with summer's first promise. Kaia passed the corner where the mural had been painted. Someone had touched it up, fresh white paint against the black outline. The words still there. They called her quiet. They meant powerful. She kept walking, past the corner store where Mr. Jamal always gave her extra change, past the barber shop with the faded posters of NBA champions in the window, past the bus stop bench where she used to sit with her sketchbook, drawing not what she saw, but what she needed to see. And all along the way, people watched, not because she demanded their attention, but because she carried something they couldn't ignore anymore. Not her skin, not her silence, but her story. On the corner of 85th and Rose, she stopped, reached into her hoodie pocket, pulled out a folded piece of notebook paper, unfolded it. Lenny's handwriting. This hoodie doesn't hide me anymore. It introduces me. Kaia smiled, then turned it over and wrote on the back, "Let them stare. You're not a secret. You're a statement." She folded it back, tucked it into the metal crack of the bench behind her, and walked on. The gates at Lincoln Prep hadn't changed. Same metal bars, same peeling navy paint, same sound when they creaked open. Kaia stepped through them with slow, deliberate steps. Her old school stood before her like a snapshot she'd grown out of, still solid, still there, but smaller now. Familiar, but no longer home. She zipped her hoodie halfway up and slid her hands into the pockets. The halls were quieter than she remembered. It was summer break, after all, but the janitors still mopped the floors like they were expecting ghosts to show up and leave dirt behind. "Kaia," she turned. Coach Dana stood at the end of the corridor, whistle around her neck, clipboard in hand, sleeves rolled to her elbows like always. Her face was still tough, but there was something softer in the eyes now. Maybe pride, maybe relief. Kaia walked toward her. They didn't hug, didn't need to. "You came," Coach said. "You asked." Coach nodded once. "Wasn't sure you would." Kaia glanced around. "Didn't think I'd ever want to." Coach gave a half smile. "Sometimes we don't go back for closure. Sometimes we go back so the next kid sees the doors already open." Kaia followed her down the hall toward the gym. Inside, it smelled like rubber soles, dust, and 10,000 shouts caught in the rafters. There were 6 girls in the ring, middle schoolers, all arms and attitude. A few were sparring gently, others jump roping, trying not to trip over the rhythm. They looked up when Kaia entered, then whispered quickly between themselves, "That's her. The hoodie girl. I saw her speech on TikTok. She's real." Kaia ignored the stares. Coach Donna clapped twice. Ladies, bring it in. The girls circled around, some chewing gum, one still with gloves on, all eyes on Kaia. This is Kaia Brooks, Coach said. Lincoln alum, Bronzeville native, Hamilton survivor, and the reason y'all even have a summer program this year. Kaia blinked. Wait, what? Coach smirked. Your story pulled in a donor, local nonprofit, said your name made them rethink how they pick their community partners. Kaia didn't know what to say to that, so she just said, oh. One of the girls, tall and serious looking, raised her hand. Are you going to show us how to fight? Kaia looked around the circle, then shook her head. No, I'm going to show you how not to need to. Confused faces. Coach Dana smiled. Kaia stepped into the center of the ring. No gloves. Just presence. You think strength is about fists? She asked. It's not. It's about knowing when to walk away without looking back. Knowing who you are when nobody's cheering for you. She unzipped her hoodie slowly, revealing her old Lincoln gym shirt beneath. This, she said, pointing to the emblem. This didn't make me strong. I did. She let that hang, then looked each girl in the eye. Stop waiting for permission to be who you already are. After practice, Kaia sat on the bleachers, watching the girls run drills. One of them, short, fast, and bold, stopped to tie her shoe, then ran back toward the punching bag and let out a yell with every jab. Kaia smiled. Coach Dana sat beside her. You think they're listening? Kaia nodded. Even when they act like they're not. Coach tapped her clipboard. You coming back next week? Kaia didn't answer right away. Then, maybe. Coach leaned back. Don't wait too long. You got something they need. And it ain't technique. Kaia turned toward the ring again and saw it. Not just the girls, but the possibility. Not just a future, but hers. As the sun dipped below the gym windows, Kaia stood, pulled her hoodie back on. Coach called out one more time as she walked toward the doors. Hey, Brooks! Kaia turned. Coach pointed at the hoodie. You ever gonna take that thing off? Kaia grinned. No, she said. Now it walks with me. The cemetery was quiet, not the eerie kind, the sacred kind. Soft grass swayed under the early evening breeze, and rows of headstones stood like folded prayers, some cracked, some new, all speaking in silence. Kaia walked between them slowly, her hoodie pulled tight even though the heat still lingered in the summer air. She didn't come here often, only when she had something worth saying. Plot 4C, second row, Kaia Brooks, 1999 do 2021. Live on, even if it scares you. She sat cross-legged on the grass, brushing away a few dry leaves from the stone, pulled her hood down, laid her palms on her knees like they taught her to in therapy, back when her grief was louder than her words. For a long time, she just stared at his name. Then finally, hey, Khalil! The words came easy now, not rushed, not forced. I made it. She smiled a little, though her lips trembled at the edges. They tried to break me, a few times. Got close. She laughed softly. Real close. Her fingers played with the fraying end of the drawstring hanging from her hoodie. But I didn't let them. I kept walking, just like you told me. She pulled something from her backpack, a folded letter, thick paper, her handwriting on the outside. She placed it at the base of the headstone, beside the small photo of him in his army uniform, the one with that crooked smile and the barely shaved head. He'd hated that haircut. You're still the reason I didn't swing first, she said, and the reason I knew how to finish the fight anyway. From her lap, she pulled her hoodie over her head, folded it once, then again. It smelled like her, like school, and smoke, and old lavender from her mom's laundry sheets. It had been through everything with her, every stare, every rumor, every step. She placed it gently beside the letter. This was yours first, she whispered, Now I'm giving it back. She sat there a little longer, let the wind carry her silence like scripture. By the time she walked back to the gate, the sky had turned that soft blue-purple that only happens in the in-between, when day hasn't let go and night hasn't claimed anything yet. Kaia didn't look back, not because she didn't care, but because she finally could walk forward. And mean it. She took the long way home, down Roosevelt, where the streetlights flickered and the sidewalks cracked, through Bronzeville's alleys, where her brother once taught her how to throw a proper jab behind a closed garage door, past Miss Lila's stoop, where someone was playing old Lauryn Hill records just loud enough to make you feel something. No music in her ears, just memories and clarity. She passed a group of kids sitting on overturned crates. One of them had a hoodie that looked just like hers, too big, too worn. He was sketching something in a notebook, earbuds in, nodding to a beat only he could hear. Kaia didn't stop, but she nodded as she passed. He looked up, nodded back. He knew. When she reached her block, the street lamps buzzed overhead. Her mom had left the porch light on. The front window was cracked just a bit, letting the evening air into the living room. Kaia climbed the steps slowly, turned at the top, looked back at the world she'd fought so hard to belong to. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't fair, but it was hers now, and she wasn't hiding in it anymore. She stepped inside. Later that night, as she lay in bed, she opened her sketchbook one last time before sleep. No fists, no shadows, no enemies. Just a girl, walking, wind in her hair, hoodie draped across her shoulder like a story she no longer needed to wear, but would never forget. Underneath, she wrote, "The world watched me walk through fire. Now watch me walk through peace." She closed the book, turned off the lamp, and let herself rest. They laughed when she walked in with her hoodie. They stared when she didn't talk. They whispered, edited, fabricated. And when that wasn't enough, they tried to erase her completely. But Kaia Brooks, she didn't beg for truth. She became it. She didn't swing. She didn't scream. She just stood, calm, steady, undeniable. And when she walked out, the same school that once feared her silence was forced to listen. Because that's what real power does. It doesn't rush. It doesn't ask. It moves with purpose, with presence, with weight. And now it's your turn. If you've ever been the one sitting alone at lunch, the one they mocked behind fake accounts, the one who held your words inside because speaking felt unsafe, know this: you don't owe the world your smile. You don't owe them your silence either. You owe yourself the truth. Walk in your hoodie. Walk in your story. Walk in your power. And when they try to shrink you, don't fight to be seen. Stand so tall they can't look away. If Kaia's story spoke to something inside you, don't let it stop here. Subscribe to Silent Power Stories. Because we don't just tell stories, we remind people who they are. Hit the bell so you never miss the next walk of quiet defiance. Drop a comment. This hoodie walks on with me. Share this with someone who's been through the fire and forgot they're made of something stronger. You don't have to be loud to be powerful. You just have to keep walking. And if you're walking in truth, we'll walk with you.